Hello there, and welcome to another Wine Steward video, and happy St. Patrick's Day. Yes, today's the day. Even if you're getting the video tomorrow instead of today, today is the day. Hence the green. And just pleased to be with you once again to talk about some great wine, some new food items, what we're doing on the wine bar, etc., etc. And what you have in front of you, prop number one, are two bottles that are rather traditionally labeled, meaning they look like labels that might have been used on these bottles like 20, 30, 50 years ago. And in fact, this is the most interesting thing to tell you about right now. It is from Inglenook, which is now owned by the movie director Francis Ford Coppola, as many of you know. And for a long time, you were heading up Highway 29, long after that property had been called Inglenook, and it was then called Coppola Family Estates or something like that. That's because he did not yet have rights to the name. He bought the property. First, he acquired the property, the part of the property with the mansion on it that the Niebaums used to live in, and then finally was able to access the front part of the property where you drive in and the vineyards that were there and the big, beautiful old winery. And all that time, though, until 2011, Francis Ford Coppola did not have the name Inglenook. He paid a pretty penny, much more than a penny, for that name, and to be able to use this label once again. But he had this lifelong dream, or at least during his wine life, this great dream of restoring this estate back to the original brand name. And so Coppola removed his name, very humbly, from the bottles as soon as he acquired the brand, and returned Inglenook to the label. Inglenook, which used to be a great wine, and for many decades had turned into nothing but a grocery store wine. But maybe it's good that enough time had passed that Coppola couldn't, in fact, use the name while he was making great wine in order to let perhaps a whole generation of people forget that Inglenook had been great, and then more recently, it had really sucked. It is now great again. This is a Cabernet that I don't always carry, but we just brought it in. Why? Because we can sell it to you for less than even some of the big boys out there on the internet. I've seen it advertised by one of the most prominent internet carriers of wine as $100 discounted to $85. Well, we're destroying that price. But the wine has to be good, right? Pricing doesn't matter. Discounting, as exciting as it may sound, is meaningless unless the wine is good. So let me tell you about this wine. I believe it is a beautiful reflection of the label itself. In other words, looks traditional, right? It is traditional. It proudly proclaims the name of the winery and Rutherford Napa Valley, not just Napa Valley, but Rutherford Napa Valley. And we talk about Rutherford dust and how Rutherford is supposed to taste a certain way, right next to Oakville and not quite St. Helena and not up on the mountains necessarily. But Rutherford, in the heart of the Napa Valley, has supposedly a certain sense of flavor and taste and is rarely huge. It is usually a balanced Cabernet, let's say a classical style Cabernet, a la the label. That's what's happening here. I love this wine. It's the kind of thing that you'll have, whether it's Cabernet or some other red or white wine made out there in the wine world, where it just doesn't jump out at you. You have to actually find your way through maybe half of the glass and then you realize, this is really good. It's this kind of Cabernet. Having already had a few sips of this off camera, I can tell you I'm getting very, very close to the this is really good phase. It's beautiful. It's got great acidity. It will age for a long time because of that. Medium bodied. The red fruit of Rutherford. Rutherford is hardly ever purple, at least not to my palate. And there's the dust they're talking about. It is dusty and beautiful. It's classical Cabernet from Francis Ford Coppola's Inglenook. Let's not forget the man. I will not forget him, because even though I've never gotten to meet him, I did visit that tasting room back when it was called Coppola, back when I was making wine in the 1990s. And I stopped by there. I was up in the Napa Valley buying used barrels from some other winery. Had a pickup truck full of used barrels I had just sniffed and checked out and paid a check for. And I thought, I will do a little wine tasting. That's what I often did. I would combine a little bit of so-called research with my barrel buying trips. And I stopped at Coppola. And did mention, I wasn't necessarily trying to get a free tasting, but I just mentioned, oh yeah, I'm up here because I was buying barrels. Oh, why are you buying barrels? Because I'm in the wine, we at Livermore Valley Cellars, we're making about 1,000 to 2,000 cases of wine a year. And they said, oh, your industry, so let me comp your tasting. And I said, well, that's very kind of you, thank you. I enjoyed a bunch of very nice Coppola wines. And then upon buying a couple of bottles, headed out to my car and went right back into the tasting room with 2 bottles from Livermore Valley Cellars. What I had at the time, and the car wasn't too hot, so the wine wasn't, were 2 bottles of Alicante Boucher, which we made for, I believe, 3 years. 2 years of those were from Rivoli Vineyard, very, very old vines. Here in Livermore Valley, we were able to access super old Alicante Boucher, a very unusual red grape that has red juice, and so it makes a very, as you can imagine, dark red wine. And I said, hey, thank you so much for comping the tasting. This is, once again, at Coppola, now known as Inglenook. Thank you, and I'd like to give this to you as a thank you for the nice tasting and discount on the bottles I bought. And I said, hey, you know what? This was like totally, this will never happen. Here's another bottle. Could you make sure Francis gets it? So, you know what? They said, yeah, we'll try. We think we can do that. Anyway, 2 weeks later, the phone rang at Livermore Valley Cellars, and Francis Ford Coppola was ordering, at least via one of his secretaries, a case of our Alicante Boucher, which I gladly delivered to the winery itself. Didn't get to meet him, but got to drive past the tasting room, far into the vineyard to the Zoetrope Studios building, and left it there. And they said, why don't you go by the mansion where Tucker was filmed and all? At any rate, it's personal. The guy bought a case of wine from me. It's only fair that we should finally buy a case of wine from Francis Ford Coppola in the form of beautiful Inglenook, Rutherford, Napa Valley Cabernet. Cool. Now, I had 2 bottles up here when I started the video. I was speaking about traditional looking labels, and I just want to say that this is back on the shelf as of today. This got a lot of you back into Great Merlot, not because it's intense and dark and over the top. No, it's more like this. It is classical Merlot from a classical producer, Rutherford Hill. Beautiful Merlot, doesn't cost quite as much as this, or anywhere near it actually. And yet, you loved it, you bought us out. This is just the brief announcement that a very classically styled Merlot, let's make Merlot great again, is back on the shelf, all right? Now, let's tell you very quickly about something that's kind of exciting about the wine bar menu, and it's on the flip side of the wine bar menu, having to do with the food that we're serving. Don came to me this morning and said, I've just brought in several new items from Spain. And I thought, how can we kind of introduce them all at one time on the menu? And I said, well, Don, what we should do is a sampler. And actually, I'm lying because it was all Don's idea. She said, why don't we do a sampler where people get a little bite of these 3 different meats and the 1 new cheese from Spain, and just so they're even further involved, they get to vote on their favorite. So let's get these products up here. First of all, the cheese, which is, oh, it's hiding here. Actually, there's a wedge of it, so you can see that it's actually wine infused. This is what the wheel looks like when it arrives. I think it's a nice prop, so why don't we have that in the background? That's not gonna work. Stay. This is kind of like the knife trick last week. Is it gonna stay? Alright, here's this beautiful cheese. I think it's goat. Yes, it is goat cheese, and if I turn this over, we would know that. Look at that. No, this is not gonna work. I spend way too much time on these videos working on the props. You know what? First, I'm gonna cut myself a piece of this beautiful stuff. Look at that. It's beautiful, as Jose Andres would say. Nice cheese. We're having knife issues again. Let's put this here. Oh man, that cheese is good. Spanish cheese is not all about Manchego. This looks like a purple Manchego wheel, as a matter of fact, and it is in fact goat cheese infused with wine. A little bit of fruitiness of that fruity wine in there. Tanginess of goat cheese. It's quite delicious. So that will be one of the tidbits on this sampler that you can order. 1 cheese, 4 meats. What are the 4 meats? Well, I just mentioned Jose Andres. He's the guy who is over in Ukraine. He is not fighting in Ukraine, he's feeding in Ukraine. So he's brought his company that addresses disasters all over the world, wherever they occur, and brings kitchens, quickly mobilizes kitchens and finds food sources and feeds people who are just having the terrible times of their lives. And that's what's happening on the borders. As the refugees are leaving Ukraine, these guys, these kitchens set up by Jose Andres and his company are there feeding these people. Super cool. Well, Andres was responsible for getting this Fermin brand of jamón serrano, it's actually jamón ibérico, the good stuff, into the United States a long time ago. And so we are proud to have it here. So that'll be one of the meats. I should just go ahead and leave it. No, I like this. That's a nice backdrop. Jamón ibérico. Maybe we can show them both. There we go. All right. How about this? Soprasada. Now this is a very soft. I can squeeze it. Maybe you can tell. This looks like a brand you've seen before from us. And normally it's a chorizo that you're buying, made by these guys. This is soprasada, which is inspired by what is made in Mallorca, one of the Balearic Islands, owned by Spain in the Mediterranean. And this stuff is so soft. It's a sausage that I think we're going to have to put into a ramekin of some kind so that you can dive into it with some crackers. But it sure looks good, doesn't it? Put that there. And then there's this pork thing called fouet. And I've never had fouet. Have you? I'm almost old enough to have fouet. It's a pork sausage from Catalonia. So from near where they make Priorat and cava and all that. You can have sausage from there. This feels much firmer, at least right now. And then salchichon de Vic. We've had this before, but it's been a long time. This is kind of like Spain's answer to dry cured salami, like that gallo salami or something. But this is from, in fact, Spain, kind of. There's four meats and one cheese to try on this sampler on the menu this weekend. And that is pretty doggone cool. It is also very, very cool that Dawn has kind of gone off and bought some other things I didn't even know she was buying, but that's cool. This is asparagus, but it's much more interesting when you say asparagus, because it is in fact from, are there two R's? Yeah, there's two R's. Asparagus. The Navarra, Spain is right next to Rioja, Spain. And it's famous for its white asparagus. I've been to Spain several times now, and the first time I was just like marveling at the fact that there are jars upon jars and many, many different brands of white asparagus all over the grocery stores. They eat this stuff like crazy. It's not overly pickly either. It's not too zingy. It's more like a brine. It's very, it does nicely with wine, white wines especially. So try the new asparagus, or say asparagus if you don't want to roll your R's. And these just came in as well. I had these during a trip to Spain in 2018, and I came back wondering if they came to the United States. I actually found seeds for piparra peppers this year. They're also called guindia peppers, I believe. It depends on whether you're in Basque Country or other parts of Spain. These are lovely. They're medium spicy. The argument could be that you're not really supposed to have these with wine. It might hurt the wine. But sometimes we're doing food and wine pairings with a romantic inclination. Like we do chocolate and wine, not because it actually works with red wine. It actually hurts red wine. It makes dry wine even more dry. But you know what? It's in your head. You want chocolate, you want red wine. They go well together, apparently. And the same thing could be said for these peppers or cornichon from France, those pickles. We don't do vinegary things necessarily with wine, but the cornichon on a cheese platter, that's why we sell them downstairs. That's why we sometimes have them up here on a cheese platter. The romance. At any rate, new food products and all that Dawn did, all these wonderful Spanish things that are on the menu this week are going to go with what? Italian wine, because we hadn't really hooked up yet. I got here at 6 o'clock in the morning. She got here at something like 11 o'clock. And she knew about this concept of the food thing, and I didn't. So what I did was set up the wine bar menu with a bunch of beautiful Italian wines, including Prosecco. And don't run away. This is really good Prosecco. This is DOCG. This is from Baldobiadene. And it is therefore a DOCG. It's not just the run-of-the-mill Prosecco, but really good stuff. So Prosecco is the sparkling wine of the week. Check it out. We have a beautiful white wine that's not from Italy that you can have a glass of. It's called Chardonnay. And we know you've all heard of Chardonnay, but if you haven't had Ojai lately, you are missing out, because yes, it does come from Santa Barbara County, from Santa Maria Valley, within Santa Barbara County, within the Santa Maria Valley, Bien Nacido Vineyard. And Bien Nacido Vineyard is apparently the vineyard that appears as a vineyard name on more wine labels in the entire world than than any other vineyard, because it is fairly large and a lot of people want it. So they sell their fruit to a lot of people, and therefore you see this guy, that gal, and everybody else having a Bienocito wine. Well, it's a great vineyard. Ojai has been treating it well, or rendering wonderful wines from it for a very, very long time. This Chardonnay, if you had it without knowing where it was from, you might say this is from Chablis, France. It's very bright, very, very bright. It's beautiful, as Jose Andres, our hero, would say. Don't expect oaky buttery from this, all right? Expect to be refreshed. Expect, like I said, to have a Chablis Burgundy kind of experience here. It's really lovely. It's beautiful. Now, I promised Italian white wines and red wines, so let's fulfill that promise and tell you very briefly that 4 of the wines on the menu this weekend are actually represented by one importer. His name is Kevin Wenk, and his importer company is called Wines You Must Try, or WUST, which I think is kind of a strange name. But he's an interesting person, and he will be here on Saturday night as of about 5 o'clock, roaming the wine bar and greeting you and elaborating on all of the wines that he represents that are actually on the menu. So if you want to meet Kevin, he's a cool guy, very thoughtful. Travels to, not Spain, well, a little bit to Spain too, but especially to Italy, and finds really wonderful things. So, and they're inexpensive, they're great values, including this. You never buy expensive Frascati. This is the wine you will drink by the glass, guzzle thoughtfully by the glass, in Rome. This is basically the white wine, wine bar, restaurant wine of Rome. Frascati. Frascati is grown just a little bit south of Rome itself. It's the most local vineyard, so it's very easygoing, bright white, fleshy though too. It's not too harsh with its acidity. So we'll start with that, and then we're going to take you to Abruzzo, to an area of Abruzzo called Terre de Chianti, for a grape called Passerina. And as you can see, this wine, and the glass is totally clear here, so you can see the color of the wine very well. It's a little more yellow, a little more golden. It's a 2018. It is developed on purpose. We want to try Passerina with just a little bit of development, a little extra fun stuff going on there. So Passerina, it's the second one we've ever carried at the Wine Steward, but thank Kevin for finding that for us. And finally, you've probably heard of Lacrima Christi, and I can promise you that you would not necessarily need to drink it. Which wine do you need, Grace?
Number 4.
Number 4.
Thank you.
All right. Got the wine bar going already. I got to tell you something about the wine bar in a minute, but at any rate, where were we? Yes, telling you about Lacrima Christi and how it's normally a wine we don't really promote and say that you must try. This is better. This is the best Lacrima Christi we've ever had, which means it's pretty darn good wine. There is no such thing as truly profound Lacrima Christi, but this is one that yours truly would actually like to have some of right now. It aspires, it transcends the category, let's say. So this is from Di Falco, and it's a wine from generally Campania. Thank you, Grace. A white wine from Campania, and it uses the grapes Coda di Volpe, tail of the fox or the wolf. Volpe, I think, is a wolf, right? And then a little bit of Falanghine. So those are the grapes. Lacrima Christi, a traditional white and red wine from Campania, the Vesuvio region, precisely. Volcanic, yeah. I can drink that. That's good stuff. It does need to be colder, but otherwise, good. All right. To prolong the idea of Italy, why don't we tell you about the Italian red flight that we've set up very briefly. Here is red wine number 1, and it comes from Sardinia. Sardinia, which is what, 70 up to maybe even 100 miles off of the west coast of Italy, is part of Italy. And perhaps the best red grape of that island is Cannonau, also known as Grenache or Garnacha. The big debate right now, because we're still trying to figure it out, is whether Grenache actually came from here or if Grenache was brought here and had the name changed to Cannonau. Who cares? This wine is really tasty. And whereas I'm not going to taste everything in front of you, I really want to try this. If I can find, there's the duplicate. All right. So I want you to see this and understand that whether you call it Grenache or Cannonau, the grape doesn't necessarily have inherently a whole bunch of color. The skins are thinner, the berries a little bit bigger, but man, where it pays off is in this nose of kind of a jammy, kirshy thing. It's just beautiful, and yet no oak got in the way of that pretty nose. This is a no oak version from these guys, Surau, And once again, the grape is called Cannonau, kind of like shooting a cannon, shooting off a cannon, Cannonau, all right? That's a great place to start. So we will now leave Sardinia for the mainland and go way up to the tip-top north of Italy to Verona, where Romeo and Juliet made out for a while before killing themselves. This is the main red grape of Verona. It's a Veronese, meaning it's a wine from Verona, and it's made entirely of the grape called Corvina. Corvina is the main grape in a more famous wine called Amarone. You've heard of Amarone, and it's delicious stuff, but it's friendly red wine. This is nowhere near as expensive as Amarone. This is like the just like drink it any day of the week, because it's, I think it's like $16 or $17. No, it's friendly. It's fun. This is an import of Kevin Wenk of West. Wines you must try. Wines, something like that. Tasty, good Corvina, and you know, this might even go to the Tuesday Night Wine Club pretty soon here. It's just, you know, it's not profound, but it's nice and dark and juicy and friendly. So I can hand this to just about any customer down there, and it says, proudly proclaims what the grape is, and not every European wine bottle will helpfully do that for you, right? The next three wines, the final three wines of the Red Flight and the menu itself, are all conveniently from Tuscany, and they're all made of Sangiovese. So we're going to start with a Chianti Senesi. Chianti Senesi is not the name of a grape. I just said this is made of Sangiovese. Aren't you listening? It's the name of a region within Tuscany. So we are going to Tuscany, and within it are subregions. Chianti Classico is one of the regions. This is an area just south of there, near Siena. You've heard of Siena? This is from the hills of Siena, the Colli Senesi. The more I talk, the more I want to try it. This is going to be roughly 85% Sangiovese with just a little bit of Merlot thrown in, just to round it out a little bit. But as you can see, Sangiovese is red. It's not purple. We've talked about that before when we were actually, ironically, referring to a Cabernet from the Napa Valley in the form of Inglenook, right? Ooh, well, oh my gosh, we know we're in Italy now. Sottobosco, the underbrush, is prominent here. A little bit of iron. Cherries. Beautiful. I just keep thinking of Jose Andres. I was watching his videos the other day. Made in Spain, watch them. They are great. Anyway, he's exuberant, and it's just so cool. He's doing such a positive thing during such a negative time. It's pretty amazing. At any rate, this is fantastic food wine, Chianti Senesi from Il Colombaio di Santa Chiara. Il Colombaio di Santa Chiara. That's almost as easy to say as Valdobbiadene. I'm practicing my Italian. All right. I told you we were going to stay in Tuscany for three wines, and keeping to that promise, here is a Rosso di Montalcino, which is kind of like the baby Brunello di Montalcino. So these guys make a Brunello that we also carry from time to time. I think it's on the shelf down there, but this costs less. And it doesn't necessarily have to be saved for the holidays or the birthday, because it costs less and it's a little more cheerful. That said, this one is pretty structured. I think you want a bistecca alla Florentina with it. That's a ribeye. It's a big fat ass ribeye that would be, with all of that protein, delicious with a rugged, structured Sangiovese in the form of Rosso di Montalcino. Oh man, the nose is getting... You know, the last nose was fascinating. This is now like, this is so old world in a cool way. Oh my gosh. But this is the setup for the final wine. A wine the likes of which we don't normally fit into a flight. In fact, we're kind of losing money on the flight this week, but what the hell? We have a good amount of this beautiful 2016 Brunello lying around, so why don't we try to sell you some by putting it in the flight? This is from La Racina. As I said, it's 2016. And I'm making a point about that because that is a fantastic Brunello de Montalcino vintage. It is perhaps the best year in the last 20. We're going to find out by the time we're pulling these out of our cellars in a few years and fully knowing them. But the point is, we've got it right now. We're putting it almost like a commercial onto our wine bar flight, and we hope you will try this along with the other 5 Italian wines. We hope you'll try that sampler that Don has thoughtfully created with 4 Spanish meats and 1 Spanish cheese infused with wine. Beautiful. And try these piparras. They're pretty addictive. It's pretty cool that I got these in my Christmas stocking, and I'm sure one of my daughters found these somewhere over in San Francisco. We looked around, found them, and got them in the store like 2 hours after I asked Dawn to start the search. Can you see if we can bring these in? Because they're really good. At any rate, thank you very much for listening to yet another video, or watching, or whatever you do. And come in and get some great food items, asparagus, and some Brunello de Montepulciano, and what a place this is in downtown Pleasanton, California, where you get to have tastes of such worldly things. Like, it's an international excursion. How much fun is that? So thank you for being up for that journey, and we will help sustain it. Have a good one. Happy St. Patrick's Day. And finally, we're closed at 6 o'clock tonight. Yeah, that's weird, because we are normally open till about 8:30 or 9 on a wine bar night. Tonight only, we close at 6, so the staff can get together elsewhere and enjoy their own St. Patrick's Day as a group. So sorry for that, it's inconvenient. The wine bar's open right now up until 6, and then we will do the full day tomorrow. As of Friday, we're back to the normal wine bar hours. So springing that on you at the very end, seeing if you watch the whole video. Bye-bye now, thank you.